Hey guys, tonight we begin not with a medieval kingdom or ancient tragedy, but with something far more familiar and devastating. A family business in 1950s America. Because, believe it or not, dividing a media empire among your children in the age of television and tailfins was somehow even more dangerous than handing over the password to your social media accounts. From Manhattan boardrooms to frozen Chicago streets, this story of power and pride was less about crowns and castles and more about corner offices and cocktail parties. But the betrayal cuts just as deep. So before you settle in, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments where you retuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together back to 1958, when a powerful man made one terrible mistake and learned too late that not all his daughters loved him the way he thought they did. The year is 1958, and Manhattan rises like a cathedral of steel and ambition beneath a cold November sky. In the heart of this concrete empire, on the 42nd floor of the King Building, that Art Deco monument to American success, Leonard King stands at the window of his corner office, watching the city he helped shape through 3 decades of headlines and broadcasts. Leonard King. The name alone carries weight. 78 years old, silver-haired, broad-shouldered, despite the stoop that age has begun to carve into his spine. He built his fortune from nothing, starting with a single Brooklyn newspaper in 1927, expanding through the Depression while others collapsed, and emerging from the war years with television stations, radio networks, and newspapers that stretch from Boston to Los Angeles. The King media empire. His voice has elected presidents, toppled corrupt politicians, and shaped the conscience of a nation. But Leonard King is tired. Tired in his bones, tired in his soul. The world is changing too fast now. Television is devouring everything. These rock and roll singers are corrupting youth. And his own board of directors speaks a language of demographics and ratings shares that feels alien on his tongue. He's a newspaper man at heart, raised on ink and deadlines. And this new world of flickering screens and manufactured smiles exhausts him. So he's made his decision. Today, in the great mahogany-paneled boardroom where he's brokered deals with senators and cinema moguls, Leonard King will divide his empire among his 3 daughters and retire to his estate in Connecticut. Let them navigate this brave new world. Let them chase the future while he rests. The boardroom fills slowly that Tuesday morning. Directors in charcoal suits take their seats around the massive table. Photographers from Life magazine adjust their bulbs and flashbulbs, because Leonard King has always understood the power of spectacle. His attorney, Harrison Webb, arranges documents in neat stacks. His chief counsel, Kenneth Carter, loyal Kenneth, who's been at his side for 25 years, stands near the window, jaw tight with concern. Kenneth had argued against this public display, had urged Leonard to take more time to reconsider. But Leonard King, who built his fortune on bold gestures and dramatic headlines, wouldn't hear of it. The daughters arrive. First comes Gloria, the eldest, at 42. Gloria King Morrison, married to Frank Morrison, who runs the Boston Globe operations. She wears a tailored Dior suit in midnight blue, her dark hair set in perfect waves, her smile as sharp as broken glass. Gloria has her father's ambition, but none of his warmth. His vision reduced to balance sheets and market dominance. She takes her seat with the confidence of someone who already knows she's won. Then Regina, 38, wrapped in mink despite the heated building. Regina King Caldwell, whose husband, Douglas, controls the Chicago television stations. where Gloria is ice, Regina is fire, beautiful in that dangerous way that makes men stupid and enemies cautious. Her red lipstick matches her nail polish, matches the silk scarf at her throat. She kisses her father's cheek, and the gesture carries the mechanical precision of a business transaction. Finally, Cordelia King, 28. And so unlike her sisters that strangers sometimes doubt they share blood. Cora wears a simple grey dress, no jewelry except the small gold cross at her throat. Her dark eyes carry her father's genuine warmth, his old-fashioned sense of duty and honor. She works not in the executive suites, but down in the newsroom, writing copy, chasing stories, believing that journalism means something beyond profit margins. She's engaged to Francis Dean, a French journalist who believes the same foolish, beautiful things she does. Cora takes her seat quietly, troubled by this spectacle, sensing something wrong in the orchestrated ceremony of it all. The cameras flash. Leonard King rises, and silence falls like a curtain. His voice, that legendary voice that has thundered through 3 decades of editorial meetings, still carries power even as it trembles slightly with age. "My friends, my colleagues, my beloved daughters," he begins, and every eye fixes on him. "I've spent 31 years building this company. 31 years of deadlines and decisions, of fighting for truth in a world that often prefers comfortable lies. I've given this company my youth, my strength, my very soul, and now I'm tired. Tired of the burden, tired of the battles. I want to spend my remaining years in peace, watching the sunset from my Connecticut garden. Perhaps finally reading all those books I never had time for." He pauses, letting the moment breathe, and in that pause you can hear the hum of the building around them, the distant clatter of typewriters, the elevator bells, the heartbeat of the empire itself. "So today, I divide my holdings among my 3 daughters. But before I sign these papers, before the lawyers make it official, I want to hear from each of you. Tell me, in front of these witnesses, in front of these cameras that will carry this moment to the nation, tell me why you love me. Tell me what this company means to you. Tell me what you'll do with the power I'm placing in your hands." Kenneth Carter closes his eyes. He knows his old friend well enough to recognize the ego and vanity in this request, the dangerous need for public validation. But it's too late to object now. The cameras are rolling. The stenographer's fingers fly across her keys. Gloria rises first, smoothing her skirt with practiced grace. She moves to stand beside her father, one manicured hand resting lightly on the back of his chair, positioning herself perfectly for the photographers. When she speaks, her voice carries the polished resonance of a radio announcer, every word calculated for maximum effect. "Daddy," she begins, and the informal address sounds strange from her crimson lips. "How do I express what you mean to me? You're not just my father, you're my inspiration, my guiding light, my North Star. Everything I am, everything I've accomplished, I owe to your example. You taught me that excellence demands sacrifice, that power requires responsibility, that truth is our highest calling. I love you more than words can express, more than sight or space or liberty. You are the sun around which my entire world revolves. When I look at this empire you've built, I don't see buildings and broadcasting towers. See your legacy, your genius, your unmatched vision. Give me the East Coast operations, and I swear on everything holy that I'll honor your legacy. I'll expand what you've built, modernize it, while preserving your core values. I'll make you so proud, Daddy, so very proud." The board members nod approvingly. Leonard King's eyes glisten with moisture. He squeezes Gloria's hand, and she smiles that perfect, practiced smile that's been photographed in 1,000 society pages. The flashbulbs pop like champagne corks. "My beautiful Gloria," Leonard says, voice thick with emotion. "The East Coast operations are yours, the New York stations, the Boston papers, the Philadelphia radio networks. Rule them well, my daughter." Gloria returns to her seat, and triumph flickers across her face so quickly that only Kenneth Carter catches it. He shifts uncomfortably, fingers drumming against his briefcase. Regina stands next, and where Gloria was calculated precision, Regina is pure performance. She doesn't just stand, she poses, hand on hip, head tilted just so, understanding instinctively how the light catches her cheekbone, how the mink slides off one shoulder. She's always been the beautiful one, the one who could make men forget their wedding vows and women hate themselves by comparison. "Oh, Daddy," Regina purrs, and her voice drips honey and smoke. Gloria speaks eloquently, but she still undervalues you. "I love you more than Gloria ever could, more than she's capable of feeling with that calculating heart of hers. You're not just my father, you're my hero, my protector, my eternal champion. When I was a little girl, I thought you were God himself, walking the earth in a grey flannel suit, and honestly, I still do. You created something magnificent from nothing, and you did it with integrity and courage that makes these modern corporate men look like whimpering children. I love you more than life itself, more than breath, more than my own happiness. My entire existence is defined by my devotion to you. Give me the Midwest operations, and I'll prove that love through action. I'll double our market share within 5 years. I'll crush our competitors and expand into television markets that others are too timid to pursue. Your empire will grow under my stewardship, Daddy. I promise you that." Leonard King actually wipes his eyes now. Regina embraces him, and the photographers capture the moment, the powerful patriarch and his devoted daughter, backlit by the Manhattan skyline. It's pure theater, and it works perfectly. "My darling Regina," Leonard declares, voice shaking with emotion. "The Midwest is yours, Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, the television stations, the radio networks, all of it. Make me proud, sweetheart." Regina kisses his cheek and returns to her seat, catching Gloria's eye. Something passes between them, not love, not even sisterly affection, but the cold acknowledgement of co-conspirators who've just successfully executed a plan. Now all eyes turn to Cora. The youngest daughter sits very still, her face pale, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. She understands what's happening here, the performance, the manipulation, the reduction of genuine love to theatrical declaration, and she cannot, will not, participate in this grotesque spectacle. Leonard King beams at her, his favorite, his baby girl, the one who still laughs at his old jokes and visits him on Sundays without needing an agenda or ulterior motive. "Cora, my darling, what do you say? Surely you, who've always loved me most sincerely, must have the sweetest words of all." Cora stands slowly. She looks at her father, and in her eyes there's genuine love, yes, but also disappointment and sadness. When she speaks, her voice is quiet but steady, lacking her sister's theatrical projection. "Father, I love you as a daughter should love her father. No more, no less. I can't dress it up in superlatives or claim my love exceeds my sister's. I love you according to my bond, the natural bond between parent and child. When I marry Francis, I'll love him too, as a wife should love her husband. My heart isn't infinite, and I won't cheapen genuine affection by turning it into a corporate presentation." The silence that follows is absolute. The stenographer's fingers freeze. The photographers sense drama and raise their cameras. Kenneth Carter leans forward, alarmed. Leonard King's face transforms. The warm grandfather vanishes. replaced by the ruthless businessman who crushed competitors and built an empire through sheer will. His voice, when it comes, is ice. What did you say? Cora meets her father's gaze, without flinching. I said, I love you as a daughter should, father. Honestly and genuinely. But I won't perform my affection for cameras or turn it into a competition with my sisters. My love isn't something to be quantified or compared. Leonard King's hands tremble, gripping the edge of the mahogany table. Red creeps up his neck, flooding his face with color. You won't perform. You won't compete. After everything I've given you. After I raised you, educated you, gave you opportunities that most women in this country can only dream about. And this is how you repay me. With coldness and ingratitude. It's not coldness, father. It's honesty. Can't you see what Gloria and Regina just did? They told you what you wanted to hear, not what was true. I'm telling you the truth. The truth. Leonard's voice rises to a roar that makes the board members flinch. The truth is that you're an ungrateful, cold-hearted girl who doesn't deserve the name king. Your sisters love me genuinely, beautifully love me, and you sit there with your sanctimonious pride and refuse to give me even a moment of affection. Kenneth Carter stands abruptly. Leonard, please. Cora means no disrespect. She's speaking from the heart. Silence. Leonard whirls on his old friend. This is family business, Kenneth. Stay out of it. But Kenneth doesn't sit down. 25 years of loyalty have earned him at least this moment of truth. No, Leonard. I won't be silent while you make a terrible mistake. Cora is right. Gloria and Regina just performed for you, told you elaborate lies wrapped in pretty words. Cora is being honest, speaking genuine love without theatrics. Don't punish her for her integrity. The boardroom holds its collective breath. No one contradicts Leonard King. Not in his own building. Not in front of cameras and witnesses. Leonard's voice drops to something low and dangerous. You think you know my daughters better than I do, Kenneth. You think you understand my own flesh and blood. I think you're letting vanity cloud your judgment, Kenneth says quietly. I think you're angry because Cora won't play the game her sisters just played. But game playing isn't love, Leonard. You taught me that 30 years ago. When we started this company on nothing but ideals and integrity. For a moment, something flickers in Leonard King's eyes, recognition, perhaps, or shame. But it vanishes quickly, buried under wounded pride and elderly fury. Get out, Leonard whispers. Leonard, get out. The roar shakes the windows. You're fired, Kenneth. Effective immediately. 25 years, and this is how you repay me. Taking the side of an ungrateful child against her father. Get out of my building. Get out of my company. Get out of my sight. Kenneth Carter stands very still. Then he nods, slowly, picks up his briefcase, and walks to where Cora sits frozen in her chair. He touches her shoulder gently. Stay honest, Cora. It's worth more than empires. Then he walks out, his footsteps echoing in the terrible silence. Leonard King turns back to his youngest daughter. His hands shake as he points at her. And you, Cordelia King, are no longer my daughter. I disown you. You get nothing, no stock, no position, no inheritance. The West Coast operations that were meant for you will be split between your sisters. As far as I'm concerned, I have only 2 daughters now. You are banished from this family, from this company, from my life. Cora's face has gone white, but she doesn't cry. Father, please don't call me that. You have no father. Now get out, before I have security remove you. Cora stands on shaking legs. She looks at Gloria and Regina, searching for support, for sisterly intervention. but Gloria examines her manicure, and Regina smiles slightly, a small, satisfied smile, like a cat that's caught a particularly plump mouse. Francis Dean has been standing near the door throughout all of this, and now he steps forward. Francis, with his French accent and his idealistic notions about journalism as a sacred calling, looks at the powerful men around the table with open disgust. "Monsieur King," he says, his accent thickening with emotion, "I came here today hoping to ask your blessing for my marriage to Cordelia. I see now that blessing would be worthless, coming from a man who values flattery over truth, performance over genuine love. Cora, my darling," he turns to her, takes her hands. "You are worth more without their money than your sisters will ever be with all their father's empire. Come with me. We'll build our own life, write our own stories, far away from this corruption." Cora looks at Francis, then back at her father one last time. Leonard King has turned away, staring out at the Manhattan skyline, his shoulders rigid with rage and wounded pride. "Goodbye, father," Cora says quietly. Then she takes Francis's arm and walks out, her head high despite the tears that finally begin to fall. The door closes. The photographers scramble to capture Leonard King's face, that famous face, now twisted with anger and something else, something that might be regret but gets buried too quickly to be certain. "Gentlemen," Leonard says, voice rough, "let's finalize these papers." Gloria gets the East Coast and half the West Coast. Regina gets the Midwest and the other half of the West. Draw up the documents. I want this finished today, and so it's done. By 5 o'clock that Tuesday afternoon, the King media empire has been divided. Leonard King has moved into Gloria's guest house in Connecticut, and Cordelia King no. Just Cora Dean now packs her small apartment, while Francis makes plans for their future in Paris. The cameras captured it all. The story will run in every paper except the King papers, where it will be buried on page 17 in 3 paragraphs of corporate speak. But the damage is done, the empire is divided, and the tragedy has begun its inexorable unfolding. 3 weeks have passed since that November morning when Leonard King divided his empire and destroyed his family. 3 weeks, and already the cracks are showing. Gloria's estate in Greenwich, Connecticut, sits on 8 manicured acres overlooking Long Island Sound. White columns, brick facade, circular driveway, the kind of house that appears in Architectural Digest, with captions about timeless American elegance. Leonard King occupies the guest house, a charming 3-bedroom cottage that would be a mansion for most people, but feels like exile for a man who once commanded the 42nd floor. He sits in the cottage's small living room this December morning, dressed in his suit despite having nowhere to go, reading the New York Times instead of his own papers. Old habits die hard. His hands shake slightly as he turns the pages, not from age alone, but from the medication his doctor prescribed for his blood pressure, for his heart, for the anxiety that wakes him at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat. The cottage door opens without a knock. Gloria enters, wearing a cashmere twin set and pearls, her expression carrying the pinched irritation of someone forced to deal with an inconvenient house guest. "Daddy, we need to talk." Leonard looks up, manages a smile. "Good morning, sweetheart. I was just reading about Eisenhower's latest press conference. The man has no vision for Daddy. Please. I don't have time for your political commentary." Gloria sits on the edge of the sofa, maintaining careful distance. "Frank and I are hosting the Vanderbilts for dinner on Saturday. Important people. Business connections we need to cultivate. How lovely. I'll wear my blue suit. I always enjoyed talking with Harold Vanderbilt. Did I ever tell you about the time you're not invited, Daddy?" The words hang in the air like cigarette smoke. Leonard blinks, certain he misheard. "I'm sorry." You're not invited to the dinner. Frank feels we both feel that it's better if you're not there. These are delicate negotiations, and we need to present a unified, contemporary vision for the company. Your presence would complicate things. Leonard sets down his newspaper carefully, precisely, as if it's made of glass. Complicate things. I see. This is my company, Gloria. I built these relationships while you were still playing with dolls. It was your company, Daddy. Gloria's voice is gentle, which somehow makes it worse. You gave it to me, remember? You divided it up and retired. That means I make the decisions now about who represents the East Coast operations at business dinners. But I'm your father. I'm Leonard King, and we're grateful for everything you've done. But times are changing. Television is the future, and you, she pauses, selecting her words with visible care, you represent the past. Newspapermen are dinosaurs now, Daddy. The Vanderbilts want to talk about television advertising, about this new concept called demographics. You don't understand that world? Something cold settles in Leonard's chest. I don't understand. I was buying television stations when most people thought they were a fad. I was, 20 years ago, yes. But now you're 78 years old, and you shuffle papers while the world moves at television speed. Gloria stands, smoothing her skirt. There's another issue. Your employees. My employees. The people you insist on keeping around you. That driver, Sam, he's ancient, Daddy, half-blind, and your secretary, that Malloy woman, she's completely unnecessary. You're retired. You don't need a secretary anymore. Leonard's voice rises. Sam has driven for me for 35 years. And Helen Malloy is the best secretary in New York. She knows every contact, every connection. You're not listening, Daddy. You don't need these people anymore. They're expensive, they're underfoot, and frankly, their presence in my house suggests you're still trying to run things. Frank and I have discussed it, and we've decided you can keep 2 staff members, 2. Choose wisely, 2. I have 12 people. My driver, my secretary, my assistant, you had 12 people when you were running an empire. Now you're a retired man living in a guest house. 2 staff members is generous, actually. Regina only allows Mother's sister 1 attendant at her place in Chicago. The mention of Regina sends a spike of anxiety through Leonard. He's supposed to spend Christmas with his middle daughter and her husband, Douglas. Rotating between the 2 households the way they planned, the way they insisted upon, actually. With their talk of fair distribution of time and equal responsibility, Gloria moves toward the door. I need your decision by tomorrow, Daddy. Which 2 people you're keeping. The rest will receive 2 weeks severance and excellent references. I'm not heartless. She leaves before Leonard can respond, and he sits in the terrible silence of the cottage, staring at the newspaper without seeing it. That evening, Leonard sits in the cottage with Sam Porter and Helen Malloy, the 2 people he's decided to keep. Sam, 73 years old, has been his driver since 1923, back when they were both young men and the world seemed full of possibility. Helen, 61, took dictation for his first major editorial that won the Pulitzer in 1934. These aren't employees, they're witnesses to his life, keepers of his history. You don't have to stay, Leonard tells them, voice rough. Gloria will give you good severance. You've earned comfortable retirements. Sam, sitting in the armchair with his weathered hands folded, shakes his head. Where would I go, Mr. King? My wife's gone. My kids moved to California. You're my family. Helen adjusts her glasses, her stenographer's notebook resting in her lap, even though there's nothing to transcribe anymore. Besides, sir, someone needs to keep you organized. You've never been able to find anything without me. Leonard tries to smile, but it breaks apart on his face. I've made a terrible mistake, haven't I? Cora tried to tell me, and Kenneth tried to warn me, and I fired him. Threw away 25 years of friendship because my pride was wounded. It's not too late to make it right, Helen says gently. Call Cordelia, apologize, bring Kenneth back. But before Leonard can respond, the cottage phone rings. Helen answers, her face growing tight. Yes, Mrs. Morrison, I'll tell him. She hangs up, turns to Leonard. Gloria wants you at the main house. Immediately. The walk from the cottage to the main house is only 200 yards. But Leonard feels every step in his knees, his hips, his chest. The December wind cuts through his coat. When did Connecticut get so cold? Inside, the house gleams with wealth crystal chandeliers, Persian rugs, oil paintings in gilded frames. Gloria and Frank Morrison sit in the drawing room, drinks in hand, looking like they're posing for a magazine spread about successful couples. Frank, handsome in that bland Connecticut way, barely glances up when Leonard enters. Daddy, good. Sit down. Gloria gestures to a chair positioned notably distant from the sofa where she and Frank sit together. A united front. Leonard remains standing. What's this about, Gloria? We've been reviewing the company finances. The East Coast division is strong, but there are inefficiencies we need to address. Dead weight we need to cut. Dead weight. Leonard's stomach tightens. Frank finally looks at him, his expression carrying the casual cruelty of a man who's married into power and wields it without wisdom. The Brooklyn paper. Your original paper. Your original paper. It's losing money, has been for years. We're shutting it down. You can't. Leonard's voice cracks. That paper is it, where everything started. It's the heart of the company. It's a bleeding wound, Gloria corrects coldly. Circulation has dropped 40% in 5 years. The building is old, the equipment outdated, the neighborhood declining. We're selling the property to developers and shutting down operations by January 15th. But the employees there are 200 people working there. Families. Men who've been with me since the beginning. They'll receive standard severance packages. We're not monsters, Daddy. Gloria sips her martini. This is business. You taught us that, remember? Never let sentiment interfere with sound financial decisions. Leonard grips the back of the chair, steadying himself. I taught you to value loyalty. To understand that a newspaper is more than a balance sheet. Say a public trust, a voice for the community. Frank laughs, actually laughs. That's newspaperman romanticism, Leonard. This is 1958, not 1928. Television is the future. Print is dying. We're simply accelerating the inevitable. I won't allow it. Leonard draws himself up, trying to summon the authority he once wielded effortlessly. I may have retired, but I still have influence. I still have connections. I'll fight this. Gloria sets down her glass with a sharp click. With what, Daddy? You gave away your voting shares. You signed the papers. You have no legal authority in this company anymore. You're a private citizen living in my guest house on my property. If you try to interfere with our business decisions, we'll have to reconsider our living arrangements. The threat lands like a slap. You'd throw me out. Your own father. Of course not, Gloria says smoothly. But we might suggest that Regina's home in Chicago would be better suited to your needs. Quieter, less stressful. You seem very agitated lately, Daddy. It's concerning. Leonard sees it than the trap he's walked into. The cage he built with his own hands when he divided his empire and gave away his power. His daughters don't love him. They tolerated him while he had something they wanted. And now that they have it, he's become inconvenient, embarrassing, disposable. "I want to call Cordelia," he says, quietly. "Cordelia." Gloria's eyebrows rise. "The daughter you publicly disowned? The one you banished from the family? I'm sure she'd love to hear from you, Daddy. I'm sure she's just waiting by the phone hoping you'll call." The sarcasm is a knife between his ribs. Leonard turns and walks out without another word, back through the cold December night to his cottage, where Sam and Helen wait with worried faces. He doesn't call Cordelia that night. Pride, shame, and fear keep his hand from the phone. But he lies awake in the guest house bed, staring at the ceiling, and begins to understand what he's lost. Christmas arrives without joy. Leonard spends it alone in the cottage, while Gloria and Frank host their party in the main house. Through the windows, he can see the glittering lights, hear the jazz quartet, watch the important people arrive in their Cadillacs and Lincolns. Nobody knocks on his door. Nobody brings him a plate of food or a glass of champagne. He's become invisible in his own daughter's home. By New Year's Eve, the situation has become intolerable. Gloria informs him, with exquisite politeness, that Regina has graciously agreed to host him for the next 3 months. "Equal time, Daddy. We agreed, remember? And honestly, the Chicago house is so much larger. You'll be more comfortable there." The train ride from New York to Chicago takes 18 hours through frozen landscape. Leonard sits in first class, staring out at snow-covered fields and industrial towns, while Sam dozes in the seat across from him and Helen works a crossword puzzle. They're all that's left of his empire, now old man, and 2 loyal employees, traveling west like refugees. Chicago in January is brutal. The wind comes off Lake Michigan like knives of ice, cutting through even the heaviest coats. Regina and Douglas Caldwell's house sits in the Gold Coast neighborhood, a massive limestone mansion that speaks of money so old it doesn't need to announce itself. Douglas Caldwell inherited his fortune steel and railways, and he spent his life trying to prove he's more than just a trust fund baby. Marrying Regina King gave him legitimacy in the media world, and he's wielded that legitimacy like a weapon, expanding the television stations with ruthless efficiency. Regina greets Leonard at the door wearing a cocktail dress at 3 in the afternoon, diamonds at her throat and wrists. "Daddy, welcome." She kisses the air near his cheek, careful not to disturb her lipstick. Douglas is at the studio, but he'll be home for dinner. "Let me show you to your room." The room is on the 3rd floor, a small bedroom that might have been a maid's quarters once, with a single window overlooking the alley. Not the guest suite, not even a proper guest room. A servant's room at the top of the house. "It's cozy, isn't it?" Regina says brightly. "And the stairs will be good exercise for you, Daddy. Keep you healthy." Leonard stands in the doorway, breathing hard from the 3-floor climb, looking at the narrow bed and plain furniture. "Regina, surely there are better rooms, all occupied, I'm afraid." Douglas's mother is visiting, and his sister and her family. "It's quite a full house, but you'll be comfortable here. Dinner is at 7 sharp." Douglas doesn't tolerate lateness. She sweeps out, leaving Leonard in the cold little room. That night at dinner, Leonard meets the Caldwell clan. Douglas's mother, Margaret Caldwell, a steel magnolia from the old money families who views the Kings as vulgar new money. Douglas's sister, Patricia, and her husband Robert, both of whom work in the television stations and treat Leonard with the careful condescension reserved for the elderly and irrelevant. They discuss ratings, shares, and advertising revenue and this new concept called the Nielsen families. And when Leonard tries to contribute to share his decades of media experience, they smile politely and change the subject as if he has unspoken. After dinner, Douglas corners Leonard in the hallway outside the third-floor room. Douglas, with his Harvard education and his inherited wealth, has always resented his father-in-law's self-made success. Now, finally, the balance of power has shifted. Leonard, we need to establish some ground rules. This is my house, and we run on a schedule. Breakfast is at 7, lunch at noon, dinner at 7. If you're late, you don't eat. We don't keep irregular hours here. I understand, Leonard says, though anger burns in his chest. Another thing, your employees, Sam and Helen, they can't stay here. What? But they're not family, Leonard. We don't have room for extra staff. There's a boarding house 3 blocks away. Clean, respectable. They can stay there, but I need them. Sam drives me. Helen manages my "you don't need a driver" in Chicago. You're not going anywhere. And you certainly don't need a secretary. What are you going to do? Dictate letters to yourself? Douglas's smile is cruel. They leave tomorrow. If you want to keep paying their salaries out of your personal funds, that's your business. But they don't stay in my house. Leonard feels something crack inside his chest, not his heart, not yet, but something close to it. You're taking away the last people who care about me. Don't be dramatic. Regina cares about you. I care about you. We're family. But Douglas's eyes are cold, calculating. Now, I suggest you get some rest. You look tired, old. Maybe you should see a doctor while you're here. We have an excellent psychiatrist who specializes in geriatric cases. Dr. Morrison, he's very good with difficult, elderly patients. The implication hangs in the air like poison gas. Leonard climbs the stairs to his small room, each step an agony in his knees, and lies on the narrow bed fully clothed, staring at the ceiling. Outside, Chicago howls with winter wind. Inside, Leonard King begins to understand that his daughters don't just want his empire, they want to erase him entirely, to reduce him to nothing so they can build their kingdom on his grave without the inconvenience of his memory. His judgment, his disappointed eyes watching their corruption. In the darkness, he finally whispers the words he should have said months ago. Cordelia. Oh, Cora, what have I done? But Cora is in Paris now, building a new life with Francis. And she doesn't hear her father's voice breaking in a cold Chicago bedroom. Nobody hears, nobody comes. Leonard King, who once commanded newsrooms and boardrooms, who shaped the conscience of a nation, lies alone in a servant's room and begins, finally, to understand what he's lost. February brings no mercy to Chicago. The cold deepens, the wind sharpens, and Leonard King's world continues its slow collapse. He's been at Regina's house for 6 weeks now, and each day feels like a small death. Sam and Helen were sent away that first week, banished to a boarding house on the south side. Leonard visits them when he can, taking the bus because Douglas refuses to provide a car. Sitting in Helen's cramped room, drinking bitter coffee while she pretends everything is fine, and Sam stares out the window at the grey Chicago streets. They're spending their savings to stay close to him, and the guilt of it eats at Leonard like cancer. But worse than the loneliness, worse than the isolation, is what's happening to the company he built. The Brooklyn paper closed on January 15th, just as Gloria promised. 200 employees out of work. The building sold to developers who'll tear it down to build luxury apartments. Leonard read about it in the Chicago Tribune. His own company's papers didn't even run the story. And now Regina and Douglas are making their own cuts, their own changes. The Detroit radio station, Leonard's first radio acquisition, bought in 1935, sold to a competitor. The Milwaukee newspaper, which won 3 Pulitzers under Leonard's ownership, transformed into a tabloid full of crime stories and pin-up girls. Everything Leonard built on integrity and journalistic excellence is being dismantled, piece by piece, transformed into something ugly and commercial. He tries to object. He writes letters to the board members, calls old colleagues, attempts to rally support, but his letters go unanswered. His calls aren't returned. He gave away his power, and without power in America, you're nothing but noise. This particular February morning, Leonard sits in the Mansion S library, the one room where he's allowed to spend time during the day reading the newspapers and feeling his blood pressure rise with each headline he sees in the King papers. Sensationalism, yellow journalism, everything he fought against for 30 years. Regina sweeps in wearing a fur coat, car keys in her gloved hand. Daddy, Douglas and I are going to New York for a week. Business meetings. You'll be fine here, won't you? Leonard looks up, confused. A week. But who'll the staff will take care of meals? And honestly, Daddy, you've been so difficult lately. So argumentative. Douglas thinks you might benefit from some quiet time alone. Time to reflect on your behavior. My behavior. Leonard's voice rises. I'm objecting to the destruction of my life's work. You and Gloria are turning my company into a circus, and you expect me to stay silent. Regina's eyes harden. It's not your company anymore, Daddy. How many times do we need to explain this? You gave it away. You retired. What we do with the company now is none of your business. It's my legacy. My name is still on the building. A name is just a name, Daddy. It doesn't give you authority. She checks her watch, irritated. We're leaving in an hour. Please try not to cause problems while we're gone. The staff has instructions to call Dr. Morrison if you become agitated. Dr. Morrison, the psychiatrist. Regina, I'm not crazy. I'm angry. There's a difference. But Regina is already leaving, her heels clicking on the marble floor, and Leonard is left alone in the library with his newspapers and his rage. That evening, after Regina and Douglas depart for New York, Leonard sits in the formal dining room eating dinner by himself. The mansion feels enormous and empty. The staff serves him silently, efficiently, and vanish back into the kitchen without making eye contact. He's become something embarrassing, something to be managed rather than respected. After dinner, he climbs the 3 flights to his small room and does something he's been too proud, too ashamed to do for 3 months. He calls Cordelia. The international operator connects him to Paris. The phone rings 4 times, 5, and Leonard's heart hammers against his ribs. Then a voice Cora's voice, speaking French, and Leonard realizes he's crying before he even gets words out. Cora, Cora, it's your father. Silence on the line. Long, painful silence broken only by the crackle of transatlantic static. Cora, please. I know I don't deserve. I know what I did was unforgivable. But I need to hear your voice. I need to tell you that you were right about everything. Your sisters, they've taken everything, and now they're destroying it. The company, my legacy, everything I built. And I'm alone, Cora. So terribly alone. More silence. Then finally, Father. Her voice is tight, controlled, carrying 3 months of hurt. Father, I'm glad you called. I've been worried about you. I read about the Brooklyn paper, about the changes. Can you forgive me? Leonard interrupts, voice breaking. Can you ever forgive what I did to you? To Kenneth? The things I said? The way Father, listen to me. You need to leave Chicago. Leave Gloria and Regina. Come to Paris. Come stay with Francis and me. We don't have much, but we have enough. You can, I can't. The words stick in Leonard's throat. I can't run away to Paris like a coward. This is my company, Cora. My country. I built something here, and I have to fix what I've broken. Father, you can't fix this. They have the legal authority. You signed it all away. Then I'll fight them publicly. I'll tell the papers what they're doing. They own the papers, Father. They control the message. Who's going to print your story? The truth of this hits Leonard like cold water. His daughter, his youngest, supposedly least worldly daughter, understands the situation more clearly than he does. I have to try, he whispers. I have to do something. They talk for another 20 minutes. Cora tells him about Paris, about Francis's work with Le Monde, about the small apartment they share in Montparnasse. She tells him about the life they're building, simple and happy and free from the corruption of empire. And with every word, Leonard feels both pride in his daughter's integrity and shame at his own blindness. When Leonard hangs up the phone, something has shifted inside him. The conversation with Cora has given him clarity, yes, but also a dangerous kind of energy. He can't run to Paris. He won't hide from what he's done. If his daughters are destroying his legacy, then he'll expose them. He'll tell the world what Gloria and Regina really are. The next morning, Leonard takes the bus downtown to the offices of the Chicago Sun-Times, a competitor to the King papers. He wears his best suit, carries his briefcase like armor, and walks into the newsroom with as much dignity as a 78-year-old man can muster after riding public transportation in February. The city editor, a young man named Tim Walsh, recognizes him immediately. The legendary Leonard King turning against his own daughters. Gold, pure gold. They sit in a conference room for 3 hours while Leonard talks and Walsh's recorder spins on the table between them. How did you're supposed to be in New York? I was in New York. Regina called me this morning. Apparently, the staff reported that you made a very long international phone call last night. To Paris. To Cordelia. She spits the name like poison. And then today, our friends at the Sun-Times called to fact-check your little interview. Tim Walsh, wanting to confirm details before he runs his story. Professional courtesy between competitors. Her smile is razor sharp. Except we're not competitors, Daddy. We're predators, and the Sun-Times is prey. One phone call from our legal department threatening a lawsuit for defamation. One call from our advertising department threatening to pull all King Media ad buys. And suddenly Tim Walsh remembers he has editorial standards. Your story is dead, Daddy. Killed before it could draw breath. Leonard sinks into a chair, feeling every one of his 78 years. You can't suppress the truth forever. Watch me. Gloria stands, towering over him. Do you know what you are now, Daddy? You're an embarrassment. A confused old man telling wild stories about his devoted daughters who are trying to take care of him. That's how everyone sees you. That's how I'll make sure everyone sees you. I built that company with my bare hands, and you gave it away. You had your time, you made your choices, and now you need to accept the consequences. Gloria's voice drops to something low and dangerous. Regina and I have discussed this. We can't trust you anymore. You called Cordelia. You tried to go to the press. You're unstable, Daddy. Dangerous. I'm trying to save. We're having you evaluated. Dr. Morrison will come tomorrow. He'll assess your mental state, and then we'll decide on appropriate care. There are very nice facilities for elderly people who are having difficulty adjusting to retirement. The words hit Leonard like physical blows. They're planning to have him committed, to lock him away in some sanitarium where he can't interfere with their plans, can't object to their destruction of everything he built. You can't do this, Leonard whispers. We can, and we will. For your own good, Daddy. Because we love you. The words are grotesque, obscene. Now go to your room. And without his freedom, without his voice, they'll complete the destruction of his legacy unchallenged. Around 3 in the morning, something breaks inside Leonard King. Not his mind, not yet, but something fundamental. Some belief in order and justice and the way the world should work. He stands up, pulls on his coat, and walks down the 3 flights of stairs in the darkness. The mansion is silent. The staff are asleep in their quarters. Leonard walks out the front door into the February night without a plan, without a destination, driven only by the primal need to escape, to run, to refuse the cage they're building for him. The Chicago wind hits him like a fist. The temperature has dropped to near 0, and Leonard is wearing only his suit coat, not the heavy overcoat hanging in his 3rd-floor room. But he doesn't go back. He walks down the Gold Coast streets, past the mansions of the wealthy, toward the lake where the water crashes against the frozen shore. Behind him, the Caldwell mansion sits dark and silent. No one notices he's gone. No one comes after him. Leonard King, who once commanded an empire, walks alone into the frozen Chicago night, and with each step, his grip on sanity loosens just a little bit more. Leonard walks for hours through the Chicago night, past the elegant townhouses, past the darkened storefronts, into neighborhoods that grow progressively rougher, where streetlights flicker and shadows move in doorways. The cold is absolute, bone-deep, murderous. His hands are numb. His face has lost all feeling. But still he walks, driven by something beyond rational thought. He talks to himself as he walks, or maybe he's talking to ghosts. To his dead wife, Margaret, who passed away 10 years ago and never lived to see what their daughters became. To Kenneth Carter, the friend he betrayed. To Cordelia, who tried to save him and was punished for her honesty. I gave them everything, he tells the frozen air. Everything. The company, the power, the money, and it wasn't enough. They want to erase me, make me disappear, make me nothing. His words fog in the Arctic air and vanish. Like his legacy, like his empire, like everything he built. Around 4 in the morning, in a neighborhood far from the Gold Coast, Leonard's legs give out. He collapses on the steps of a closed diner, shaking uncontrollably, his lips blue, hypothermia setting in. This is where it ends, he thinks distantly. Leonard King, dead on the streets of Chicago like a homeless vagrant. Perhaps that's fitting. Perhaps that's what he deserves. But then a car pulls up an old Buick, beat up and rusted, and Sam Porter climbs out, moving as fast as his 73-year-old legs will carry him. Mr. King. Jesus Christ, Mr. King. Sam wraps his coat around Leonard's shoulders, tries to pull him to his feet. What are you doing out here? You'll freeze to death. Leonard stares at his old driver without recognition for a moment. Then awareness flickers. Sam, how did you? Helen called me. Said she had a bad feeling. Said we needed to check on you. We went to the mansion, saw the front door standing open. And I've been driving around looking for you for 2 hours. Sam manages to get Leonard into the Buick, cranks the heat to maximum. You're ice cold, sir. We need to get you to a hospital. No. Leonard grabs Sam's arm with frozen fingers. No hospitals. They'll call Gloria and Regina. They'll lock me up. Sam, they want to have me committed. Put me in an institution. Sam's weathered face goes hard. Those daughters of yours ought to be ashamed. I remember when they were little girls, and you'd bring them to the office on Saturdays. Miss Cora would sit at your desk pretending to be an editor, but Gloria and Regina they only cared about the money, about being important. I should have seen it, Leonard whispers. Kenneth saw it. Cora saw it. Everyone saw it but me. Sam drives to the boarding house where he and Helen are staying. It's a run-down building in a questionable neighborhood, but inside Helen's room there's warmth and genuine concern. Helen wraps Leonard in blankets, makes hot coffee with bourbon, and slowly, painfully, Leonard stops, shaking. You can't go back there, Helen says firmly. Not to that house. Not to those daughters. Where can I go? Leonard's voice is hollow. I have no home, no company, no power. They've taken everything. You have Cordelia, Sam says quietly. You called her, didn't you? I can see it in your face. She'd take you in your face. She'd take you in. She's got her mother's heart, that girl. I can't run to Paris like a coward. It's not cowardice to accept help from someone who loves you, Helen says. Those other two don't love you, Mr. King. They love what they took from you. There's a difference. Leonard sits in the shabby boarding house room as dawn breaks over Chicago, grey and cold. Through the night of walking and freezing and nearly dying, something has crystallized in his mind. Not clarity, exactly his thoughts, still fragment and scatterbutt understanding. He understands now what King Lear must have understood. What every fallen monarch learns too late. Power without love is nothing, and love can't be commanded or quantified or performed. It simply is, or it isn't. I need to make this right, Leonard says. With Kenneth, with Cora. I need to first. You need to rest, Helen interrupts. Then we'll figure out the next steps. But even as Leonard lies down on Helen's narrow bed and closes his eyes, he knows the damage may be beyond repair. His company is being destroyed. His reputation is in tatters. His mind, under the pressure of grief and rage and betrayal, is beginning to crack like ice under weight. Outside, Chicago wakes to another frozen February morning. In the Gold Coast mansion, Regina discovers Leonard's empty room and calls Gloria in fury. They'll send people looking for him, of course. They'll find him eventually, but for now, in this moment, Leonard King sleeps fitfully in a boarding house room, protected by the only two people who still care whether he lives or dies. And somewhere in Paris, Cordelia Dean wakes from troubled dreams with a sense of foreboding she can't explain. Some daughter's instinct that tells her something is terribly wrong with her father, thousands of miles away across the Atlantic. The third act of Leonard King's tragedy is complete. The storm has passed, but the damage is done. What remains now is to see whether anything can be salvaged from the wreckage, or whether the fall of Leonard King will be absolute and final. The story of Leonard King's midnight walk through frozen Chicago streets never makes the newspapers. Gloria and Regina see to that. Their publicity teams craft a different narrative, a loving family concerned about an elderly patriarch who is struggling with the adjustment to retirement. Private matter. Family business. Nothing to see here, but whispers spread through the industry anyway. Media, people, talk. Secretaries, gossip. Leonard King, the legend, the titan, reduced to wandering city streets in the middle of the night, like a madman. Some people feel pity. Most feel schadenfreude. The tall poppy cut down. The mighty fallen. There's always satisfaction in watching the powerful brought low. Leonard spends 3 days in the boarding house with Sam and Helen before Kenneth Carter finds him. Kenneth arrives on a grey Thursday afternoon, climbing the stairs to Helen's room with his briefcase and his familiar worried expression. When Leonard sees him, Kenneth, who he fired, who he betrayed, who he drove away in his pride and vanity, he breaks down completely, just sits on the edge of the bed and weeps like a child. Kenneth lets him cry. Then he sits beside his old friend and speaks with the gentle firmness of someone who understands that love sometimes means saying hard truths. Leonard, I've been watching what's happening. The company changes, the Brooklyn closure, everything. I tried to warn you in November, and you wouldn't listen, but I'm here now, and I need you to listen now. Are you ready to listen? Leonard nods, unable to speak. Gloria and Regina have filed papers to have you declared mentally incompetent. Dr. Morrison provided an evaluation based on interviews with your daughters, not with you suggesting advanced dementia and possible danger to yourself and others. They're removing to have you institutionalized and to establish themselves as your legal guardians with full control over your remaining personal assets. They can't, Leonard whispers. I'm not insane. I'm angry. I'm heartbroken. But I'm not. It doesn't matter what you are, Leonard. It matters what they can convince a judge you are. And they have resources, lawyers, doctors, on retainer. You have me and Sam and Helen. Kenneth opens his briefcase. But we do have one option, Cordelia. The name hangs in the air. Leonard's face crumples. I don't deserve her help. No, you don't. But she's offering it anyway. I called her in Paris, told her what's happening. She and Francis are flying to New York today. They'll be here by tomorrow night. She's coming, after everything I did to her. She's your daughter, Leonard. Your real daughter. Not the vipers you created in Gloria and Regina, but a woman who actually understands what family means. Kenneth pulls out more documents. She's also the only person with legal standing to challenge the competency filing. As your daughter, she can petition the court for custody instead of Gloria and Regina. But Leonard, Kenneth's voice grows stern. If we do this, if we fight this battle, you have to be completely honest. About your mental state, about what you've done, about everything. No more pride, no more ego. Can you do that? Leonard thinks about the night he wandered frozen Chicago streets, talking to ghosts. He thinks about the moments when his thoughts scatter like startled birds, when he can't remember what day it is or why he's angry. He thinks about the rage that consumes him, that makes him want to scream at walls and strike invisible enemies. I don't know if I'm sane anymore, Kenneth. Sometimes I feel like I'm breaking apart, like Leonard King is just dissolving. Then we work with that truth. We find you a real doctor, not one on Gloria and Regina's payroll. We get you evaluated honestly, and we fight to keep you free, not institutionalized. Kenneth squeezes Leonard's shoulder. But you have to apologize to Cordelia. Really apologize. Not just words, but genuine recognition of what you did to her that night. Kenneth finds them a small hotel room, nothing fancy, but clean and warm and anonymous. Sam and Helen stay there with Leonard while Kenneth handles the legal preparations, and Leonard sits by the phone, gathering courage for the call he needs to make. When he finally dials the Paris number, Francis answers. There's a long, tense moment. Francis Dean has every reason to hate Leonard King. Leonard publicly humiliated the woman Francis loves, called her cold and ungrateful, cast her out. Monsieur King. Cordelia is packing. We leave for the airport in 1 hour. Francis, I need to apologize to you for what I said about your relationship with Cora, for suggesting you were only interested in her inheritance. For sir, Francis's voice is tired but not unkind. I do not need your apology. I know what I am and what Cora and I have together. Your opinion of me never mattered, but your opinion of her that matters to her, even though she pretends it doesn't. When you speak to her, remember that. She loves you still, though you've given her every reason not to. Then Cora comes on the line, and Leonard's prepared speech, the careful apology he's been rehearsing, dies in his throat. All he can say is, Cora, baby, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I know, Daddy. Her voice is steady, strong, full of her mother's compassion. I'm coming. Francis and I are coming to help you. Just hold on, okay? Don't let them break you. Stay strong for a little longer. I don't feel strong. I feel like I'm losing my mind. You're not losing your mind, Daddy. You're losing your illusions. There's a difference. Sometimes the world has to break us down so we can be rebuilt into something better. They talk for 20 minutes. Cora tells him the Plankenith will meet them at LaGuardia. They'll drive directly to Chicago, file the counter-petition. She tells him that she's been following the company news, watching her sisters dismantle everything. And she has ideas about how to fight back. Not legally. Gloria and Regina own that battlefield, but publicly. Morally, in the court of opinion that Leonard himself taught her to value. When Leonard hangs up, he's still broken, still fragile, but no longer quite so alone. Cordelia and Francis arrive at Chicago's Midway Airport on a Friday evening. Stepping off the TWA flight, exhausted from 18 hours of travel, but carrying the fierce determination of people on a mission. Kenneth waits at the gate, and when Cora sees him, she embraces the old family friend with genuine warmth. Thank you for calling me, Kenneth. Thank you for watching over him. I should have done more sooner, Kenneth says. Should have fought harder in November. We all should have done more. Francis adjusts his glasses, looking every inch the serious French intellectual in his wool coat and scarf. But we are here now. Where is Monsieur King? They drive through Chicago's winter darkness to the small hotel where Leonard waits with Sam and Helen. When the door opens and Cora enters, Leonard struggles to his feet, his face a mask of shame and hope and desperate love. Cora, you came. You actually came. Of course I came, Daddy. She crosses to him, and there's a moment of hesitation, 3 months of hurt, standing between them like a wall. Then she embraces him, and Leonard King, who hasn't cried in front of his daughters since they were small children, breaks down in Cordelia's arms. I was so wrong, so blind. You tried to tell me the truth, and I punished you for it. Kenneth tried to warn me, and I fired him. I destroyed everything good because I couldn't bear to hear the truth about Gloria and Regina. Daddy, I know. It's okay. It's not okay. Nothing is okay. I gave away my company to monsters, and now they're destroying it. 30 years of work, of building something meaningful, and they're turning it into trash. And I can't stop them because I'm just a foolish old man who, Daddy, stop. Cora pulls back, holds his face in her hands. You're not foolish. You made a mistake. A big mistake, yes, but you're human. And you're not old, you're 78, which means you have years left to fight, to fix what can be fixed. But the company is just a company, Daddy. Buildings and broadcasting towers. What matters is the truth the story. And that's something Gloria and Regina can't control, no matter how many papers they own. Francis steps forward, extending his hand to Leonard. Monsieur King, I work for Le Monde in Paris. I also have connections with journalists in New York, Washington, London. Journalists who do not work for King Media, who cannot be threatened or bought. They would be very interested in this story. The legendary Leonard King, betrayed by his daughters, fighting to preserve his legacy. It is, how do you say, compelling human drama. Kenneth nods, slowly. Francis is right. Gloria and Regina killed your interview with the Chicago Sun-Times because it's local, because they have leverage there. But the story told internationally, by respected journalists who are beyond their reach. That's different. But my reputation, Leonard hesitates. To admit publicly that I was wrong, that my daughters have turned against me, that I'm human. Cora finishes, gently. Vulnerable, Daddy. Your reputation was built on truth-telling, on having the courage to admit when powerful people do wrong things. Well, Gloria and Regina are powerful people now, and they're doing wrong things. Someone has to tell that truth. Why not you? Leonard sinks into the chair, his mind working through the implications. For 3 decades, he shaped narratives, decided which stories got told and which got buried. Now he's the story, and the idea of exposing his own failures, his own family's dysfunction, his own vulnerability goes against every instinct he has. But then he thinks about the Brooklyn paper, closed and demolished, about the Milwaukee newspaper, once a beacon of quality journalism, now a tabloid, about Kenneth, fired for loyalty, about Cora, disowned for honesty, about all the people who worked for him, who believed in what the King Media empire stood for, now watching it rot from within. Tell me what you need me to do, Leonard says quietly. Over the next 3 hours, they plan. Francis will contact his journalist, friends Edward R. Murrow's people at CBS, reporters at the Washington Post and the Times of London. They'll tell Leonard's story, but not as a puff piece or a sob story, as journalism. Hard, honest journalism that details the transformation of King Media under Gloria and Regina's control. The closures and layoffs, the shift from quality to sensationalism. Leonard's personal story becomes the frame for a larger narrative about what happens when corporate greed replaces journalistic integrity. Kenneth handles the legal side. He's filed the counter-petition challenging the competency declaration. He's arranged for Leonard to be evaluated by Dr. Sarah Chen, a psychiatrist at Northwestern with an impeccable reputation and no connection to the Caldwell or Morrison families. The evaluation is scheduled for Monday morning. They'll fight this, Kenneth warns. Gloria and Regina have expensive lawyers and powerful friends. This won't be easy. Nothing worth doing is easy, Leonard says. And, for the first time in weeks, he sounds like himself, like the Leonard King who built an empire on conviction and courage. They work late into the night, Leonard dictating his story while Helen takes notes in her perfect shorthand. He tells everything: the November meeting, the division of the empire, the disowning of Cordelia, the gradual stripping of his dignity at Gloria's Connecticut estate and Regina's Chicago mansion. He talks about the night he walked through frozen streets, about the moments when he felt his mind fracturing under the weight of grief and rage. It's painful. It's humiliating. But it's true, and truth is the only weapon Leonard King has left. Around midnight, exhausted, they finally stop. Cora insists Leonard rest, and she sits beside his bed like she used to when she was a little girl and he come home late from the office, too wired to sleep, and she'd sit with him until he calmed down. "Thank you for coming back," Leonard whispers. "I didn't deserve it." "Love isn't about deserving, Daddy. That's something Gloria and Regina never understood. Love is about showing up, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Monday morning brings the psychiatric evaluation. Dr. Sarah Chen meets them at her office in a professional building near Northwestern University. A woman in her 40s with steel grey hair and intelligent eyes that miss nothing. She spends 3 hours with Leonard, conducting tests, asking questions, listening with the focused attention of someone who actually cares about accuracy rather than predetermined conclusions. Cora and Francis wait in the lobby, drinking terrible coffee from a percolator, while Kenneth paces and checks his watch. When Leonard finally emerges, he looks exhausted but relieved. "Well?" Kenneth asks. She says, "I'm not insane." Depressed? Yes. Anxious? Certainly. Showing signs of trauma consistent with sudden loss of purpose and identity. But not demented, not incompetent, not a danger to myself or others. Leonard manages a weak smile. She said, "My cognitive function is actually quite sharp for my age. All those years of editorial work kept my mind flexible." Dr. Chen follows him out, holding a manila folder. "Mr. Carter, I've prepared my preliminary report. Mr. King is absolutely capable of making his own decisions and managing his own affairs." Dr. Morrison's evaluation was, to put it bluntly, professionally irresponsible. He diagnosed dementia without ever meeting the patient, based solely on second-hand accounts from interested parties. It's enough to get him censured by the medical board. "Will you testify to that in court?" Kenneth asks. "Absolutely. And I'll be filing a formal complaint against Dr. Morrison with the American Psychiatric Association." Her voice carries the quiet fury of a professional whose ethics have been offended. What his daughters attempted is elder abuse. Plain and simple. They leave the office with something that's been in short supply lately: hope. Not certainty, not victory, but the possibility of victory. It's enough. But that afternoon, the war truly begins. Gloria and Regina arrive at the hotel together. Having been informed by Kenneth's filing of Cordelia's they sweep into the small lobby like avenging angels in designer clothing, all fury and indignation and expensive perfume. The confrontation happens in the hotel's shabby conference room, with Kenneth present as counsel. Leonard sits at one end of the table, flanked by Cora and Francis. Gloria and Regina sit at the other end, their lawyers forming a wall of expensive suits between the sisters. "This is absurd," Gloria hisses, directing her venom at Cordelia. "You waltz back from Paris after 3 months and suddenly you're concerned about Daddy's welfare. Where were you when he needed family support?" "I was in Paris because Daddy disowned me, Gloria. Or did you forget that part?" Cora's voice is steady, cold, and I notice neither of you objected when he did it. In fact, you both looked quite pleased. Regina leans forward, her red lipstick like a wound. "We're trying to help him. He's not well, Cordelia. He wandered the streets in the middle of the night. He's paranoid, making wild accusations about you destroying his company." Francis interrupts. "But these are not wild accusations. They are documented facts. The Brooklyn paper closed, the Detroit radio station sold, the Milwaukee newspaper turned into tabloid, all within 3 months of your taking control. Those were sound business decisions." Gloria snaps. "Unlike our father, we understand that media is changing. We're adapting. You're dismantling," Kenneth says quietly. "There's a difference between adaptation and demolition." One of Gloria's lawyers clears his throat. "Let's focus on the legal issue. Mrs. Morrison and Mrs. Caldwell have legitimate concerns about their father's mental health and decision-making capacity. They're seeking to protect his interests. They're seeking to silence him." Cora interrupts. "Because he started asking questions about how they're running the company. Because he objected to their changes." This isn't about protecting him, it's about controlling him. How dare you? Regina's voice rises. Genuine or performed, anger, it's hard to tell. We've sacrificed to take care of him. We've opened our homes, provided for his needs. You put him in a servant's room on the 3rd floor, Leonard says, speaking for the first time. His voice is quiet but clear. You took away my staff, my dignity, my purpose. You made it clear I was an inconvenience. And when I objected to watching you destroy everything I built, you decided to have me committed. Gloria's face hardens. You're not capable of understanding the modern media landscape, Daddy. You're living in the past, and your judgment is compromised by nostalgia and ego. My judgment is compromised. Leonard's voice rises now, color flooding his face. You're turning my newspapers into scandal sheets. You refiring experienced journalists and replacing them with kids fresh out of college who write whatever sensational garbage sells papers. You're destroying 3 decades of credibility for short-term profit. See? Gloria gestures at Leonard as if presenting evidence. This is what we're dealing with: agitation, paranoia, inability to accept change. These are symptoms of cognitive decline. But Kenneth slides a document across the table. Dr. Chen's evaluation. This is from a board-certified psychiatrist with no connection to either party. She evaluated Mr. King today and found him fully competent. Your Dr. Morrison's evaluation, on the other hand, is professionally questionable at best. The lawyers grab the document, speed reading, and something shifts in their expressions. Gloria sees it too. Her jaw tightens. This doesn't change anything. We're his daughters. We know him better than any doctor. You're his daughters who stand to benefit from having him declared incompetent, Cora says. I'm also his daughter, and I say he's fine. So we have competing interests and competing evaluations, which means a judge will decide. The room falls silent. Both sides understand what this means: a public court battle, with all the family's dysfunction exposed for the world to see. It's mutually assured destruction, and nobody wants to be the first to light the match. Finally, Regina speaks, her voice honey and poison. Cordelia, darling, let's not make this ugly. Daddy can come live with you in Paris if you want him so badly. We'll drop the competency filing. But you drop your objections to how we run the company. Daddy signed it over legally. It's ours now. No, Leonard says, firmly. I won't run to Paris while you destroy my legacy. I built that company to mean something, to stand for truth and integrity. And I'll fight to preserve that, even if I have to burn my reputation to do it. Gloria stands abruptly. Then you'll lose everything. Your reputation, your dignity, everything. We'll make sure of it. I already lost everything when I trusted you. Leonard stands too, facing his daughters across the table. At least now I'll lose it, fighting for something that matters. The story breaks on Wednesday morning, simultaneously in 3 publications, that Gloria and Regina don't control: the Washington Post, the Times of London, and Paris Match. Francis Dean's connections prove their worth. The headlines are devastating. The fall of King Media, how 2 daughters seized an empire and silenced their father. Leonard King speaks. I built my legacy on truth. My daughters are destroying it on lies. American media dynasty in turmoil as family war goes public. The articles are thorough, documented, merciless. They detail the closure of the Brooklyn paper, the transformation of the Milwaukee newspaper, the sale of the Detroit station. They include interviews with fired employees, with journalists who watched quality standards collapse under Gloria and Regina's leadership. They quote from internal memos that Francis somehow obtained through his network, showing Gloria and Regina's explicit instructions to chase ratings and circulation over journalistic integrity. And they tell Leonard's story not as a victim, but as a man who made terrible mistakes and is trying to make amends. The disowning of Cordelia, the firing of Kenneth Carter, the vanity that led him to divide his empire like a medieval king dividing his kingdom. Leonard doesn't hide from his failures. He owns them completely, and that honesty gives the story moral weight. By noon, it's the biggest media story in America. By evening, it's international news. The television networks that don't belong to King Media run segments. Radio commentators dissect it. Suddenly, everyone has an opinion about Leonard King, Gloria Morrison, Regina Caldwell, and the future of American journalism. Gloria and Regina respond with a press conference at the New York King Media headquarters. They stand in front of the cameras, perfectly composed, and present their own narrative, beloved, but declining father, unable to accept retirement, making wild accusations because he can't bear his irrelevance. They express sadness, concern, continuing devotion. "We love our father deeply," Gloria says, her voice trembling with what might be genuine emotion or exceptional acting. "It breaks our hearts to see him struggling like this. We only want what's best for him." The fact that he's been manipulated by opportunists who see a chance to exploit family tensions for their own gain, a clear reference to Cordelia and Francis, is deeply painful for us. Regina dabs at her eyes with a handkerchief. "Daddy gave us this company because he trusted us to carry on his vision. We're doing exactly that, modernizing, expanding, ensuring King Media remains relevant in a changing world. If he can't see that if his judgment has been compromised by age or influence, that's tragic. But it doesn't change our duty to the thousands of employees who depend on this company's success." It's a masterful performance. For a moment, public opinion wavers. Maybe the daughters are right. Maybe Leonard King is just a bitter old man who can't accept change. But then Edward R. Murrow dedicates his evening broadcast to the story. Murrow, the most trusted voice in American journalism, doesn't interview Leonard or Gloria or Regina. Instead, he interviews the fired employees of the Brooklyn paper. He interviews journalists who worked under Leonard's leadership and now work under Gloria and Regina's. He presents data circulation numbers, advertising revenue, quality metrics, and he asks a simple question: is this progress, or is this destruction? The tide turns again. Kenneth receives calls from board members, the ones who weren't completely in Gloria and Regina's pocket, who remember Leonard's leadership, who are troubled by the direction of the company. They're not ready to rebel yet, but they're listening, they're concerned. And then, on Thursday afternoon, something unexpected happens. The mail arrives at the hotel room, and among the letters is one postmarked from Connecticut. Helen opens it, reads, and her face goes pale. "Mr. King, you need to see this." The letter is from Frank Morrison, Gloria's husband. It's brief, typed on plain paper with no letterhead, no signature that could be traced. "Mr. King, I thought you should know. Gloria and Regina are planning something. I don't know the details, but I overheard a phone call. They mentioned making this go away permanently. They were talking about you. I don't know what it means, but I thought you should be warned. I've watched what Gloria has become since she took control of the company, and I don't recognize the woman I married anymore. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner." FM. Leonard reads it twice, his hands shaking. "What does permanently mean?" "It means they're getting desperate," Kenneth says grimly. "The public battle isn't going their way. Their reputations are being damaged. They need to end this." "You think they'd what? Hurt him?" Cora's voice rises with alarm. "I think when people have everything to lose, they're capable of things they wouldn't normally consider. Kenneth takes the letter, examines it. This could be paranoia. Frank could be trying to stir up trouble, or it could be a genuine warning. Francis stands abruptly. We need to move. Different hotel. Register under false names. Until we know what they're planning, I won't hide like a criminal, Leonard protests. You're not hiding like a criminal, Daddy. You're taking sensible precautions against people who have already proven they're willing to destroy you. Cora grips his hand. Please, for me, just until we understand what we're dealing with. Leonard looks at the faces around him. Cordelia, Kenneth, Francis, Sam, Helen, all of them here because they believe in him, despite his failures. All of them risking something to stand with him. All right, he says quietly. We move. Within 2 hours, they've checked out of the hotel and relocated to a small apartment Kenneth rented under an assumed name. It's in a working-class neighborhood far from the Gold Coast, the kind of place where Leonard King would never think to look for Leonard King. That night, they watched the evening news coverage of the King media scandal. The story has taken on a life of its own now, beyond any one person's control. Senators are calling for investigations. Media critics are writing think pieces about corporate responsibility and journalistic ethics. The King media stock price has dropped 8 points in 2 days. And somewhere in New York and Chicago, Gloria and Regina are planning their next move. Desperate to end this before it destroys everything they've seized. Friday morning brings news that changes everything. Kenneth receives a phone call at 7 a.m. from a board member named William Harrison, one of the original investors who helped Leonard build King Media in the 1930s. Kenneth, I need to speak with Leonard, privately, today. They arranged to meet at a diner on the South Side, anonymous and safe. William Harrison arrives at noon. A distinguished man in his 70s, wearing a grey overcoat and carrying a leather briefcase that's seen better days. He slides into the booth across from Leonard and Kenneth, orders coffee he doesn't drink, and speaks in low, urgent tones. Leonard, the board is fractured. What your daughters are doing, the public relations disaster, the stock price collapse. The Senate calling for investigations, it's destroying shareholder value. Some of us remember what this company used to stand for. We remember when King Media meant something beyond profit margins. How many board members? Kenneth asks. 6 out of 15 who are willing to challenge Gloria and Regina's leadership. Not enough to remove them, but enough to force changes. Enough to reinstate certain standards. Restore certain positions. Harrison looks directly at Leonard. We want you back. Not as CEO, that ship has sailed, but as Chairman Emeritus. A symbolic position with real oversight authority. Someone to hold Gloria and Regina accountable. Leonard sits very still, coffee cup frozen halfway to his lips. They'd never allow it. They don't have a choice if 6 board members threaten to resign publicly. The company can't survive that kind of exodus. Not with everything else that's happening. Harrison pulls documents from his briefcase. But Leonard, there are conditions. You have to publicly reconcile with your daughters. A photo opportunity, a press conference, everyone smiling and talking about moving forward together. The public needs to see the family unified. You want me to pretend? Leonard's voice rises. After what they've done, I want you to be strategic, Harrison interrupts. You can't win by destroying them, Leonard. They're your daughters, and destroying them means destroying the company and your own legacy along with it. But you can win by forcing them to operate within ethical boundaries. You can win by making them accountable. Kenneth leans forward. He's right, Leonard. Total victory means total destruction. But compromise means you get some of what you want: oversight, standards, protection for the journalists and employees who still believe in what King Media used to be. Leonard looks at the documents. Harrison has brought the proposed board resolution, the terms of the chairman emeritus position, the public statement they want him to make. It's all carefully crafted, politically calculated, designed to save face for everyone, while actually changing very little, except it would change something. It would put Leonard back in the building, back in the meetings, back in a position to fight. Not with the power he once had, but with enough authority to matter. "I need to talk to Cordelia," Leonard says, finally. They return to the apartment where Cora and Francis wait. Leonard explains Harrison's offer, the board's proposal, the compromise being offered. As he speaks, he watches Cora's face, trying to read her reaction. "What do you think?" he asks when he's finished. "Should I take it?" Cora is quiet for a long moment, staring out the window at the gray Chicago afternoon. "What do you want, Daddy? Revenge or redemption?" "I don't know anymore." "Yes, you do. You've always known. You built that company to mean something, to serve the public, to pursue truth, to hold power accountable. If you can get back inside and fight for those principles, even partially, isn't that better than destroying everything from outside? But your sisters are my sisters. I don't forgive what they did to you, or to me, or to Kenneth and all the others, but they're still family, and family means not giving up even when it's hard." Cora turns to face him. "Take the position, Daddy. Go back. Fight from inside. Make them be better than they want to be." Francis nods agreement. "And Cordelia and I, we will stay in America for a while. Not in Paris. We will work for papers that are not King Media, but we will watch. We will write the stories that need to be written about what happens inside that company. We will be the external accountability that keeps everyone honest." That evening, Kenneth calls Harrison and accepts the terms. The board will vote Monday morning. If the resolution passes and Harrison believes it will, Leonard King returns to King Media on Tuesday. But first, there must be the reconciliation, the performance, the lie that serves a larger truth. Saturday afternoon, they gather at a neutral location, a lawyer's office in downtown Chicago. Gloria and Regina arrive with their husbands and their attorneys, faces carefully neutral. Leonard arrives with Cordelia, Kenneth, and Francis. The press waits outside, cameras ready. In the private conference room, before they go out to face the cameras, the family sits across from each other one final time without an audience. "I don't forgive you," Leonard says quietly to Gloria and Regina. "I don't forgive what you did to me, or to Cordelia, or to the company. But I'm willing to work with you, to try to find a way forward that honors what King Media used to be." Gloria's face is stone. "This isn't forgiveness we're buying, Daddy. It's silence. You agree to stop attacking us publicly, and we agree to give you a ceremonial position. That's the deal." "It's not ceremonial," Kenneth interjects. "The chairman emeritus position comes with oversight authority, attendance at all board meetings, and veto power over major editorial decisions." Regina laughs bitterly. "You negotiated well, Kenneth. Fine. You want back in. You're back in. But don't think this changes anything. The company is still ours. And you'll run it according to the standards we establish," Leonard says. "Or the 6 board members who support me will make your lives very difficult." They stare at each other across the table, father and daughters, united by blood and divided by everything else. This isn't reconciliation. It's an armistice in an ongoing war. But sometimes armistice is enough. They emerge from the conference room to face the cameras, and the flashbulbs explode like small bombs. Leonard stands between Gloria and Regina, Cordelia on his other side, and they present the image America wants to see: a family reunited, a crisis resolved, a dynasty preserved. Gloria reads from a prepared statement. We're grateful to announce that our family has worked through our differences. Our father will be returning to King Media as Chairman Emeritus, providing guidance and wisdom as we navigate the future together. We regret the public nature of our private struggles, and we ask for privacy as we continue to heal as a family. The reporters shout questions. Leonard answers with careful words that Kenneth helped him craft. Yes, he's pleased to be returning to the company. Yes, he believes Gloria and Regina are capable leaders. Yes, the family is committed to upholding the highest standards of journalism. Every word is technically true and fundamentally incomplete. Only one reporter asks the right question. Mr. King, do you forgive your daughters? Leonard pauses, and in that pause, everyone sees the truth beneath the performance. I'm their father, he says finally. Forgiveness is complicated, but we're family, and family means showing up even when it's hard. It's Cordelia's words, spoken back to her, and when he glances at Cora, she smiles, slightly sad but proud. The press conference ends. The family disperses to separate cars. No embraces, no warm farewells. Just the cold transaction of power and compromise. Tuesday morning, Leonard King walks back into the King building for the first time since November. The 42nd floor feels different, colder, more corporate, less like the newsroom-adjacent chaos he remembers. But the people who remember him line the hallways as he passes. Secretaries, reporters, editors, they don't applaud. That would be too obvious. But they nod, they acknowledge, they remember. His new office is smaller than the old one, tucked in a corner rather than commanding the entire floor. But it has a window overlooking Manhattan, and it has a door that closes, and it has a desk where Helen Malloy sits typing on her typewriter, right back where she belongs. Welcome home, Mr. King, she says, and there are tears in her eyes. The work begins immediately. Leonard attends board meetings, reads internal memos, reviews editorial decisions. He discovers that the damage is worse than he knew. Contracts cancelled with experienced journalists, partnerships abandoned with international news agencies, standards manuals literally thrown away. Gloria and Regina built their empire on quicksand, chasing short-term profits while destroying long-term credibility. But slowly, painfully, Leonard begins to rebuild. Not the company as it was, that's gone forever, but something that honors what it was supposed to be. He reinstates the editorial standards manual. He rehires some of the fired journalists, not all, but enough to matter. He establishes an ethics committee with real authority. He fights for every inch of ground, and Gloria and Regina resist every step. But the board supports him just enough to make progress possible. Months pass. Spring comes to New York, then summer. Cordelia and Francis rent an apartment in Greenwich Village and work for the Herald Tribune, writing stories about media ethics and corporate responsibility. They visit Leonard every Sunday for dinner, and slowly something like a real relationship rebuilds between father and daughter. Not what they had before. Something different, sadder, wiser. Kenneth Carter returns as chief counsel, and over lunches at their old diner, he and Leonard reconstruct the friendship that was nearly destroyed. They talk about the old days, yes, but also about the future. About what King Media could still become if they fight hard enough. Sam Porter drives Leonard to work every morning in a new company car, and they listen to the radio news together, critiquing coverage like they did 30 years ago. Sam is slowing down, they both are, but some mornings. Stopped at a red light, Leonard catches his old friend's eye in the rearview mirror and they smile, remembering who they used to be. Gloria and Regina remain at their posts. Gloria running East Coast operations, Regina managing the Midwest. They're civil at board meetings, professional in their communications, and utterly unforgiving in private. The family dinners don't happen. The holidays are separate. The reconciliation is real in business terms and fiction in emotional ones. But the company survives. More than survives, it begins, slowly, to recover its reputation. The stock price stabilizes. The Senate investigation finds problems but no criminal wrongdoing. Advertisers who left return. Journalists who resigned consider coming back. One evening in September, Leonard sits in his apartment, a new place, independent, his own, reading the newspapers, all of them, not just his own. And he sees stories that matter, investigations that serve the public, truth being told to power. Some of those stories appear in King media papers. Not enough of them, but some. Cordelia stops by with groceries. She's taken to checking on him weekly, making sure he eats properly, takes his medications. They sit together on his small balcony as autumn comes to Manhattan, painting the city in gold and shadow. Do you regret it, Daddy? Any of it? Leonard thinks about this carefully. He's 79 now, tired in ways that sleep doesn't cure. He's lost years of his life to this war, sacrificed relationships that can't be fully restored, discovered ugly truths about his own pride and blindness. I regret dividing the company the way I did. I regret disowning you that most of all. I regret not listening to Kenneth. He pauses, but I don't regret fighting back. Even when I thought I was losing my mind, even when I wandered those frozen streets, I was fighting to preserve something that mattered. And we did preserve it, at least partially. That's not nothing. No, Cora agrees softly. That's not nothing. The sun sets over Manhattan, and Leonard King watches the city he helped shape through 3 decades of headlines and broadcasts. He's not the titan he once was. He's not the king of his empire. But he's still standing, still fighting, still believing that truth matters and journalism means something beyond profit. His legacy is compromised, complicated, stained by failure and pride. But it's not destroyed, and in the end, that's the most any of us can hope for: to fight for what we believe in, to acknowledge our mistakes, to make amends where possible, and to leave the world slightly better than we found it. The story of Leonard King doesn't end with triumphant resolution. It ends with an old man on a balcony, his youngest daughter beside him, watching the sunset and knowing that tomorrow he'll wake up and fight the same battles again. Not perfectly, not completely, but honestly. And in a world of comfortable lies, honest fighting is its own kind of victory.